Hi everyone, and welcome to another video in the Cosmic Tower Science series. Now, in the previous video, we talked about how mainstream science really only looked at the physical and the sub-physical spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, this only represents like 1% of the totality of creation. And then to go even a step further, within this 1% that science can detect, only a very small sliver is what our physical organs can detect. So if anything, it's a humble reminder that what we can perceive with our sense organs is really a teeny tiny bit of the total spectrum of creation. Now, what needs to happen, obviously, is that mainstream science needs to expand to include the subtle energy realm, or the 99%, because the problem is that by only looking in this small spectrum, using spectrum analysis and other types of equipment, technologies are then developed without being aware of how these technologies disrupt the more subtle levels of creation, which is what we're finding, the situation we're finding ourselves in now with all the man-made technologies, electromagnetic frequencies causing us a lot of harm, and especially on these subtle planes of creation. So today we're going to look at a science that actually does include the subtle vibrational spectrum. And many, it's nothing new. Many classical spiritual and healing traditions created their own system to analyze a specific number of stages within the energetic cycles that take place in the subtle realm, and to understand specific vibrational qualities in these realms. And you're probably familiar with some of those. The basic split into two, into the yin and the yang, or the three doshas in the Ayurvedic medicine, or five elements in Chinese medicine. These are all ways to represent the energetic cycles that take place in the subtle energy realm. So what we're going to be looking at is the physics of quality as created by Dr. Ibrahim Karim. And the physics of quality really extends the existing worldview to incorporate the subtle qualitative energy relationships between different energy systems. So where mainstream science is really focused on quantity, weight, length, frequency, and it excludes the human being, right? Our emotions, our thoughts, how we feel. Qualitative measurement not only looks at like the physical, but as well as the other metaphysical, or the subtle planes of creations. And luckily, the science is becoming more mainstream now, because this allows us to measure and evaluate the effects of energy fields, and it shows us how different things affect each other on an unperceivable subtle energy and subtle energy level. Now, the laws of this new physics of quality seems very similar to the laws of quantum physics, but quantum physics applies to the subatomic levels, while the physics of quality is universally applicable to the subtle energy interactions on all planes of existence. So spiritual, causal, mental, emotional, vitality, and the physical plane. So it really strives to create an energy balance on all these levels, internally, within living beings, but also external to our system, and both on the individual as well as the collective level. So a truly holistic science. Now, I am really a novice at this. I'm still studying and researching this myself, and it's very elaborate. And all I want to do is just give you a brief overview of this science that Dr. Karim created, and then touch on some key principles that we will be using in later videos. And then I'm going to tell you how you can learn more. I'm really here to just open the door for you to learn more about it. And I believe Robert Gilbert, who teaches Dr. Karim's work here in the US with the Vesica Institute, I believe he also has his show on Gaia TV now that you can watch to learn more. So one of the first principles we want to touch upon is the principle of resonance. And the best example of this is if you take two tuning forks that are the same length, so they're attuned to the same frequency. When you strike the one tuning fork and they're close enough, the other one will start vibrating also. We call this the principle of resonance. So when two or more energy systems are in resonance with each other, there is an exchange of information and energy. So that's important to know. This doesn't just apply to tuning forks. This applies to all energy systems and all of creation. And one important thing to understand about this is that afterwards, when they're no longer in resonance, they both do not return to their original state. They keep part of the information, and this changes both energy systems after they've been in resonance. So there's sort of a memory effect, and this is important to understand. And this is very much like what has been observed in quantum physics with quantum entanglement. Now, in our environment, detrimental waves, like caused by man-made technology, they will amplify the same type of harmful waves in a living energy system within that environment and vice versa. And this is happening constantly now, where these destructive waves created by man-made electromagnetic technologies can really transmute harmless living systems to become highly toxic because of this resonance between certain waves. Now, the good thing is that this also applies to beneficial waves. So beneficial qualities can be broadcasted throughout an environment by piggybacking those qualities on a carrier wave. So this is one way we can use this principle to transmute detrimental to beneficial energies by applying correct qualities to the waves. One last thing that's really important here is that we can also create resonance through our own awareness. So our own awareness can act as a link between two energy systems. And it's really important to understand, because what you focus your awareness on, you're basically exchanging energy with and information with. So that's really, really important, because it can affect you both ways. If you're all hung up on 5G antennas and you're constantly focused on it, right, it's going to be even more detrimental to you, because where you put your awareness, you're exchanging energy and information with. So another principle is the principle of harmonics. You could really look at resonance happening like in one plane, but then harmonics also linking between different planes. So the best example of this is if you look on a piano, right? You have the one particular note that has a certain energetic quality, and then that note repeats itself again when you get to the eighth note. So that's why we call it octaves. And then this just keeps on repeating this scale. So every string length, if you vibrate a string, not only will it make a string of the same length vibrate, but also a string that's half or like double the length. And what this shows is resonance and an exchange of energy and information that's not just restricted through one plane of existence, but that also this exchange of energy information happens vertically in a way between all levels of existence. And we're very aware of this with sound, because we can hear multiple octaves. So you can hear the same note at different frequencies, but the same happens for all other scales. It's the same for color, but we can only see, one octave or less. So we're not aware of this, but colors then also repeat on different levels, right? And that's important to understand how the energy information exchange happens between different levels of existence. So the way this subtle vibrational spectrum is broken up in the physics of quality is based on the work of the French radiesthesists. And they basically took this vibrational spectrum and they broke it up in 12 bands within the spectrum. And these are like 12 bands of polarized energy qualities that manifest, from the one, from the primal unity. And we can refer to this principle as the 12 around the one. And this principle is embedded in many great spiritual traditions and in sacred geometry. I mean, you can find this principle everywhere. So what's important to understand is that each of these 12 bands carries a specific power and creates precise functions in natural system. So everything that's in creation and manifested creation has a specific configuration of the bands of this vibrational spectrum. Now, in terms of like the color spectrum here, you can see that you have the 7 visible colors, from red all the way to violet. But then it also contains the 5 invisible color bands. If you go from red to infrared and then from violet to ultraviolet, there's 5 more bands that are not visible to us as visible light, but they're also being measured and they're also taken into account. So even though we use colors here to express this principle, each band is like an archetypal energy function, which then also appears in sound, in shape, in angle, in proportion, and so on. So just look at them as 12 archetypal qualities that can be measured. Now, one other important thing to understand about this is that within each band, you can have beneficial waves, which they call horizontal waves in biogeometry, and then you have detrimental waves, which move vertically. An oversimplification of this is you could look at the horizontal waves, keep the energy in the earth plane, while the vertical waves move that energy out of it. So these energy bands, so these qualities, they can be detected by specialized radiesthesia tools, just like invisible electromagnetic waves can be detected by meters designed to detect them. So as Dr. Karim, based on the work of the French and other radiesthesias, developed tools that can measure each of these 12 qualities. So in order to understand this a little bit better, there really are no colors or sounds in absolute reality. And that might sound a bit like a crazy statement, but it can be better understood by explaining a phenomena that we all know when light goes through a prism. So if we let light, which has no color, pass through a glass prism, the light will be refracted at different angles, producing what we perceive as the colors of the spectrum. So these components, which are bent at different angles, it happens according to their wavelength or frequency, and then they are separated and they become visible as different colors, each on its own. But if we reverse this process and put all the colors together, that means that every color and its opposite, which are also called complementary colors, will be merged, and the original colorless whole light will be reproduced. So similar, if we put all the vibratory ranges of absolute reality together, we get the colorless, the soundless, the everything and the nothing, what the physicists call the energy soup, and the spiritual traditions call the one quality. This is what all other qualities emanate and manifest from. And then you will also see that there is correspondences between, for example, the quality of the color red corresponds to a particular sound, and so on. So all these scales are interlinked. So one important addition by Dr. Karim to the French radiesthesia, which was able to measure these 12 bands, is that Dr. Karim added the one energy quality. It's called BG3, which is a copyrighted trade name for biogeometry tree, because he was able to figure out that this energy resonates with three particular quality bands. And it's going, without going into too much detail, he was basically able to measure this one universal energy quality. And this one quality, it's the quality of the center, right? If on the circle you have all the different colors, as we saw, the different polarized qualities, it all emanates from the center. And this energy of the center is very special in that this energy quality is responsible for maintaining all the energy structures of living systems. And it's a special type of unpolarized energy quality of the center, and we also call it the centering vibration, which really emphasizes a practical aspect that this energy can be used to help center or create the ultimate balance within energy systems. And typically, when we think about balancing an energy system, think of a scale that's out of balance. We look at it from a quantitative point of view by adding more weight on one side or removing, some weight on the other side. We bring balance again. Now, with this balancing quality, with the centering quality, it's like moving the center of the scale to where everything comes back into balance. So it allows us to directly balance living energy systems by connecting their energy to the energy of the center, rather than using the polarity balancing method to neutralize an excess in a system or a deficiency. By connecting the system directly to this centering quality, we're able to bring everything back into ultimate balance. And this can be used to transmute detrimental energy effects from many environmental sources of toxic vibrations and transmuting those into beneficial energy by applying centering methods. So rather than just trying to block, to deflect, or absorb the toxic vibrations, by applying this one energy quality, the centering energy quality, everything is brought back into balance. Now, this one energy quality you can find on sacred energy or sacred power spots out in nature that have very high concentrations of this centering energy quality. You can also find them within the human body, like in the chakras, for example. You find them in acupuncture points, right? So this one quality really brings balance into the world of polarity through its access to the absolute. So this is really important because like biogeometry, which was created by Dr. Karim, and the physics of quality is really strives in bringing this energy quality in to balance everything out versus just working on the polarity level. So Dr. Karim really did a lot of work, and I'm really just giving you a glimpse of this. But what I really love about all the work that he's done is that not only has he been able to scientifically, measure imbalances and then correct them, and then in science studies validate his results on human health, on animal farming, and agricultural research. So not only did he build specific instruments that are more advanced than what the old, like the French radiesthesists used from 100 years ago. So he created instruments to measure all these different levels, which we will talk about more in the next video. And then he showed simple ways to actually bring balance into the energy system. And he was able to demonstrate this in a bunch of studies and experiments. And I've put a few of them out here to just give you some idea, and you can read through them. But one of the things that he was able to do was he was able to have really good results in Hep C for people. So he showed that biogeometry energy balancing by simply using symbols obtained the best results among pharmaceutical and other alternative remedies. You see examples here of where they were able to eliminate certain parasites and increase agricultural yields. But one particular one that I really like is where engineer Adel Amar used biogeometry to take water from the Red Sea, which has a really high salt content, and then without desalinating the water or without running it through a filter, he was able to, just by the use of shapes and running that water through there, to harmonize the salt water. And what they noticed was that he was able to grow sweet potatoes with this harmonized salt water. And not only was he able to grow sweet potatoes with it, but the sweet potatoes with the harmonized salt water were healthier than the control units, which used fresh water. So it's really amazing, and it shows you some of the application of this. And another important project is the one of Hamburg, and we'll go into this in more detail in a later video. But basically, in a nutshell, in a town called Hamburg in Switzerland, they put cellular antennas into the church tower, and everybody started to develop electrosensitivity ailments. And then the Swiss government and Swiss Telecom called in Dr. Ibrahim Karim. Not able was he able to measure it. He was able to remediate it. And then the Swiss government and Swiss Telecom actually had to A, admit that they had a problem, and that B, Dr. Karim was able to measure it and to remediate it by things that mainstream science would call impossible, and that they had to come out in public and admit to it. So we'll go into more detail on this particular one in the next video, but you can learn more if you go to the biogeometry website to learn more about all these amazing experiments. Now, if you want to learn more about biogeometry and the physics of quality in general, Dr. Karim has 3 books. I mean, for those that want to learn more about it, I recommend Back to a Future for Mankind, because it's relatively easy to understand and it gives you a good overview. I also like the Biogeometry Signatures book, and I like this one because it has specific energetic patterns or signatures in there that you can use to balance out your own organs and your aspects of your own being. And when I was in Egypt last winter, I would just every morning for half an hour, I would draw these different symbols. So this is a way to experience the physics of quality and biogeometry and have more of an experience of it. So those that want to understand, this is a good book to start. Those who wants to have an experience, for me, what it's really about, the Biosignatures book is really good. And then if you want to go into the deep end, this is his Hidden Reality, the Biogeometry Physics of Quality book. But this is a really I mean, it goes really in depth, and I wouldn't start with this one. Anyway, I will put a link in the description to these books so you can learn more. And thank you so much for joining me in another video of the Cosmic Tower Science series. And I hope that this was helpful for you, and see you in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.